moving on to the next one.
Yeah.
The statement and the next two statements, I'll just
We got to
kinda say
address
them
these
both,
together.
'cause
Yeah.
you kind of
That's
got to
true.
address them both. But we will.
I have a question for both
Kind
of
of separate. The two statements was abortion is worse than the Holocaust, and the second statement in the video was abortion is worse than slavery. So let me just, because I know what your question is going to be. So let me just say on the Holocaust, I was talking to my brother about this a long time ago, and I like
30
something
years
he said.
ago.
I liked something that Tim said, which was that 6 million versus 50 million. He said the numbers mean something. I think if you're going to qualify just by numbers, abortion, which has killed was now over 51 million. More people have died from abortion in the Holocaust by a lot. I think the numbers aren't the only important factor here, but I think the numbers mean something.
Right, and that's exactly what my question kind of gets across. It depends on what your qualifier is. If you really just ask someone, and I don't think anybody's really ever been asked, I mean, I've never been asked this or asked anyone it, but which is worse, the Holocaust or slavery?
Yeah, and slavery is harder to quantify because, okay, how many people have died in the slave trade? What are you talking? The American slave?
But the point is not quantifying it. From what I'm coming from, we can quantify some numbers, and abortion is going to win out definitely over the Holocaust, and probably over slavery, though depending on how long you track it through time. And then there's all the different factors as to what that was, but how about qualify it?
Right.
When you're looking at it as, okay, the Holocaust is oppression, torture, death. Slavery, oppression, oftentimes torture and death. And you look at abortion, oppression against a particular group, torture.
If for late-term fetuses, yes.
Yeah.
Late-term babies, yes.
And death.
Right.
So, and there are probably many other kind of qualifications there, but who are we to say that one death is worse than another?
There's a fairly famous quote: "One death is a tragedy, 1,000 is a statistic."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone know who said that?
No.
Joseph Stalin. Interesting. The reason I think about that is because it says abortion is worse, or is abortion worse? What is worse?
Right.
Did slavery have as great a social or cultural or geoeconomical impact as the Holocaust? Again, it depends on how you calculate it.
How do you work it out,
Same thing with abortion. I think it's like comparing evils.
Right.
Right. So it's easy to count the numbers.
And I'll pitch it this way. Okay. In Fresno, we experience a murder rate that is disconcerting to some, or many. Is a double homicide of two 45-year-old men worse than the single homicide of a 10-year-old child?
Right. I mean,
they're both bad.
Nobody needs to answer that question.
Here's what I'll say. I'll say instead of my suggestion, because I think you can't ever really. At least certainly in the next 9 minutes, we're not going to figure that out. Here's what I would say instead. I would say they're both Holocausts. I'm about to have a meeting at a high school where I want to go and have them partner with us and Justice for All to do an outreach. At this point, many of their faculty, I'm not going to say who it is, but many of their faculty are against having us come in. And one of the main reasons for that is some faculty members have a problem with using graphic images. Now, I'm about to have a meeting with that faculty in a week or two, and the question I'm going to ask is, are you guys using graphic images when you guys talk about world history and you're talking about World War II and the Holocaust? Do you guys use graphic images? And the answer is going to be yes.
Right.
And then my follow-up is going to be, then is it correct it seems to me that you only have problems with showing pictures of the current Holocaust. I think that's the way they're both Holocausts. They're both wrong. Yeah. I've got no problem with using the word Holocaust and the word abortion. Now, when going on to abortion is worse than slavery, what do you guys think about that one?
Here's my initial thought.
Don't even go with worse. It's like, what about the abortion, comparing abortion to slavery?
Again,
this happens a lot.
This has been my mantra for the majority of this episode. interesting philosophical academic discussion, whether you want to talk about, what were the social ills, what were the technological advancements that were inhibited. You can pick all this interesting philosophical stuff. In terms of an argument as to why abortion should be illegal, this is just not helpful.
Why not? Hold on. Let him make his argument, and then you can disagree. Okay.
Because the reason we believe abortion is wrong is because it destroys or kills unjustly an innocent human life. The reason we believe lynching is wrong is because it destroys or kills an innocent human life. Right. The reason we believe slavery is wrong is because it enslaves illegitimately a human being who has the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness as much as the owner in the situation. Holocaust follows the same logic. So in terms of abortion, to say which one is worse can be an interesting philosophical discussion, but that has no real bearing on why abortion should be illegal.
Liz, counter-argument.
Not necessarily a counter, because I agree with what you're saying, but I think that the use of the Holocaust and slavery as examples and of building common ground is incredibly important.
I grant that, definitely.
People agree that the Holocaust and slavery were wrong. For the most part. There might be a few wackos out there, but for the most part, people agree on those things. The question is why. And I think it really comes down to dehumanizing and the devaluing of human life. Yeah. Especially with regards to slavery. You're not always talking about death, but one of the biggest things, especially in American slavery, was the treatment of African Americans as not human or not fully human. And putting them down that level.
That's a good point.
And devaluing them in that way. And the same thing with the Holocaust. Jews weren't human, or they were subhuman. And it's the same thing with the unborn. They're not human, or they're subhuman, potential human. And so those examples carry through. I don't think you can ever really say which is worse. You can say which killed more people. You can say which treated people badly longer. You can analyze on all these different levels, but really it comes down to, do we value human life? And who are we inviting into the protection of humanity?
Yeah, well put.
Yeah, see, I would say they're both atrocities, but exactly. I wouldn't necessarily try to compare the two outside of a few exceptions. I think there are a few exceptions where the comparison between abortion and slavery is helpful. Not saying one is worse than the other, just comparing the two can be helpful. For example, the language used was often very comparable.
Yes.
For example,
yes,
or is it comparable? Comparable? Is it both?
You said them both.
I actually don't know the answer to that.
Which is strange
I'm
for
sure
you.
We're about to find out on our tweet chat. Okay.
Here it comes.
You can Google it.
I think it's comparable.
Get it? Yeah. Okay. So the link, an argument was used: don't like slavery, don't own a slave. Okay. Well, you can obviously compare that to don't like abortion, don't have one. Okay. Well, in both cases, people that said don't like slavery, don't own a slave, they were not understanding the case that the abolitionists were making. Right. The abolitionists were not saying we don't like slavery.
We're saying it's wrong.
We're saying it's wrong for everybody to have slaves. And this is even more confusing now because I think even many more people now than 150 years ago believe in moral relativism. This idea that you can believe one thing and I can believe another thing and everybody can be right and this whole deal. 150 years ago, people did not believe in relativism as much. I mean, people were more, I think, argument oriented. They followed logical arguments a lot more than just thinking. The presidential speeches would go on like all day and the debates would go on like all day. People are standing outside in the heat. That wouldn't happen now.
Right.
But I think even more now, people say don't like abortion, don't have one, and think that's a great argument. And they just don't. They don't. That's not what we're. Now there might be some people that say, well, no, I just personally don't like abortion. But we're saying, no, we think abortion is wrong for everybody because we believe it kills a human being. Now, if it doesn't kill a human being, my argument fails.
Exactly.
But that's where you have to take it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think that. I think that hits it.
I completely thought you were going somewhere with that, and not at all. Okay, I want to see if we can get. Oh, Liz was right on the pronunciation. What were you saying?
Comparable.
Dang it.
Thank you. Who's the
listener? That was John.
I think generally across the board, comparable is accepted in general conversation.
Andrew asks, would you use the argument of slavery if you were in Alabama?
I would say
where people are talking about it more, but then you also have
Well, it depends on
who you talk to, maybe.
Who you talking to?
I lived in North Carolina. My father or my grandfather's from Texas, and we've been in that area, and depends on who you're talking to. My thought, if I was, let's say I was doing and I've done Justice for All events in Georgia at Georgia Tech and in Middle Tennessee State University, and I found that can be an interesting discussion point on a college campus, but outside, because college campuses tend to be more of progressive thought anyway. But if you're going into the countryside out there, I would probably stay away from it, at least until you knew.
Well, pick something else as your common ground.
And here's why. Here's why.
Yeah.
If it's not common ground. Sorry.
Thank you for stealing my thunder.
Well done, Liz. Good job.
You're trying to find common ground, and if you are going to if you're going to find difference ground.
Yeah, I don't know how you would say
uncommon ground. If you're going to find uncommon ground.
That's
smart. Right. I mean, you might be. I mean, it's not saying that we're not implying that Southern people believe in slavery, but you do have. I mean, there can be touchy things depending on people's family history.
Exactly.
I know. I lived in Georgia. I know there are some people that would still refer to the Civil War as the War of Southern aggression, Northern aggression. I messed up the joke.
Wow.
I hate that.
You're in trouble now.
Whatever. Anyway, here's the other thing I would say. I'm still not seeing the countdown time. What's the story with the timer?
I don't know. I think we're getting a little interference here. I'm going to try not to move.
Hope we get it in time. And here's the other thing I would say. I would say this can be helpful. The comparison between abortion and slavery can be helpful if you're trying to help people understand that abortion should be ranked higher among political issues. Asking people, if you were alive 150 years ago and you're voting for someone and you liked all these things about them, but they were pro-slavery, would you vote for that guy? Because a lot of people say, abortion
I don't want to be a single issue.
I don't want to be a single issue voter. Okay,
true.
well, there are some issues that are so big. I'm not going to say necessarily single issue, but more important issue. We prioritize. I mean,
absolutely.
That's just being wise. I mean, you don't. Nobody thinks that having a position on abortion is going to be the exact same importance as having a position on pick something stupid, whether sodas should be sold in schools instead of just juices or whatever. These both might be important issues, but one is way more important than the other.
Absolutely.
So I think asking I think it's more effective to ask someone, would you have voted for someone that was okay with African Americans being lynched? I think that's more effective than maybe asking people if they would have acted differently in Germany during the Holocaust.
Yeah.
So I think there can be, I know there's a book, Abortion and Slavery. There's a guy that wrote a whole book. I forget who the author is. I'm really sorry. I should have Googled it before.
Link it on the website.
Whatever.
Google the book.
So there's comparisons to be made, but I don't necessarily think if you're always trying to find common ground with pro-choice people, that might actually get you a step back, because then you have to defend what you mean by that. It might just get this huge emotional response, and there are several things that pro-lifers do.
Common ground is supposed to be common.
Right, yeah. So and just like all the different things that we tell people, if it's going to incite a huge reaction that's not going to help your discussion, then maybe decide not to go there. Okay, that's our show. Thanks for listening.
You've been watching Life Report, pro-life talk, real world answers. Life Report is produced by Right to Life of Central California. Visit their website at fresnoprolife.org.